Right. No time like the present. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to my kitchen here on this lovely Monday evening, December 15th, 2025. And thank you very much to everyone who has been kind enough to show up so far this evening. Obviously, this was kind of unexpected, I suppose, for a lot of folks, especially since this is not a Wednesday. But, well, because of the date, tonight, I was determined to get some celebrating in because, as the title of this video says, this is something of a very personal anniversary for myself, and it just shows how much of a cast iron geek I am. Namely, that this is the 15th anniversary of the first time I cooked in a cast iron pan. And if you can think of anything more nerdy than something like the 15th anniversary of the first time you played with a toy, well, then, well, I would certainly like to know. But nonetheless, though, thank you again to the to the kind folks who are here already. And hello to Rocket Caver, hello to Flash 1499, and Mark Sieber, hi, and Rick Stumbow. And thank you again. And Rich Qualls watching from Southern California. Yes, and well, as you can see, I've got a cast iron pan already heating up. This thing is already smoking hot. But I was hoping to give at least one look at the bottom, just so that you'll know which pan this is, although this is the same one that is in the thumbnail of this video. And that is, of course, this is a large cast iron skillet, and this is the one that I affectionately call my redneck pan. And I'll be telling a little story about this particular one tonight because this is, in fact, the very first cast iron pan I was ever given, and the very first one that I used to actually cook in cast iron. However, I don't want to take forever, so let's get a little bit of cooking done, which means I like using corn oil when I'm searing a steak, because I find corn oil is a high heat, high smoke point oil, so it does a good job there. And it doesn't really impart any real flavor into my steak that I know of. So, yes, that's right. As I mentioned, we've got a steak coming up. And I suppose I better show that to everybody before we get started. And this is this is actually a boneless sirloin that I managed to find on sale at Price Chopper tonight. It's not very thick, but again, that's largely because this is going to be cooked thoroughly all the way through, not exactly medium rare, because of the dish that we're making tonight, and that would be steak pizzaiola. I could just simply cook this as is, but I figured this would probably be done in about 4 minutes if I did that, and so there wouldn't be much of a video to that, would there be? I have coated this. This steak has been resting in the fridge for the past several hours or so. I just simply gave it a nice coating of salt, of kosher salt and black pepper on both sides, and like I said, I let it dry in the fridge since maybe about 12:30 this afternoon. So we're talking 7.5 hours here, and that. Well, let me do this again. There we go, and that should be enough to sear the steak without causing too much smoke. And well, there's only one way to find out. This is a 10-inch large cast iron skillet, and as you can see, it's a pretty thin steak, but it's fairly wide. It does just barely fit into the pan, however. But yeah, as I mentioned, probably only within like the last year, the last couple of years or so, I've definitely become very much cooked on the idea of dry aging, or at least drying out your meat in the refrigerator before you cook it in a hot cast iron pan. Because you notice something? There is some smoke, but my kitchen is not filling up with smoke. So how about that for a starter there? Also, since I've done that, actually, I took care of that. Rocket Caver, I actually prepared for that. I've done everything I can to prepare for tonight so that there should be as few interruptions as possible. I think one concern that I have, nonetheless, is that I hope this has not affected the sound of my microphone here. Namely, that I remember last time that there was mentioning that the microphone seemed to cut out, but I hope that's not the case here. I thought you had a new electric stove back to gas. No, it's the other way around, actually. I was cooking on an electric stove for like about 12 years or so until I moved into my home where I'm living right now. And I have been using a gas stove now for the past 3 years. And I have enjoyed almost every bit of it. So yeah, I really have enjoyed cooking with gas. And yeah, that's the other thing about drying out your steak in the fridge first. It gives it a really nice crust. So as you can see, as I said, all I did was just simply coat it with salt and pepper and dried it out in the fridge. And I'm just simply searing this in corn oil. And so far, oh man, I have to say again, I'm pretty tempted. I could just simply take, once this reaches the right temperature, I could just take this out of the pan and eat it as is. But as I said, that would make this a pretty short video. That's one reason why I decided to do something a little different. I have done this before, though. Namely, that we are having an Italian dish, which is steak pizzaiola, and that is essentially beef simmered or braised in Italian-style pasta sauce. So, and if you have never had steak pizzaiola, well, definitely I would suggest that you give it a try because, I mean, I'm doing this the hard way in that I'm putting a number of ingredients together to make the sauce. All you would really need to do is just go to the store, get yourself a jar of your favorite sauce, whether it's pizza sauce or pasta sauce, and then once this is done, as you can see, that's what's going to happen next. In fact, I'm not even cooking this all the way through, especially because we're mostly going to be simmering this in the sauce. So in fact, I have done what I wanted to do here, and that takes care of step one. We've got ourselves a nice steak here. But now that I've done that, it's time to get busy here and start doing a few other things. For starters, now that I've got some grease in the pan, let's start caramelizing some onions, shall we? So there's one step. All right, let's get out a leather handle cover here for this large cast iron pan. This pan, okay, yeah, I suppose, cooking steak in real time, better than the pasta I had for sure. Well, yeah, actually, well, that's the other thing, Mark Sieber. As I mentioned already, what we're actually going to be doing is making a pasta sauce right now, and then we're going to be simmering the steak in it. So there's something you might want to consider. And in fact, why not do the same thing with ground beef too? I mean, I know how expensive steak has gotten these days. That steak that I have there is a boneless sirloin. And that was the cheapest steak I could find at Price Chopper on short notice this afternoon. It was still about $9 a pound, $8.99 a pound. And finding a steak these days for under $10 a pound is indeed, well, something to write home about, unfortunately. There we are. We're off to a decent start here. What era lodge is that? Don't see the lodge on the helper handle. No, you're right, actually, which means I think it's time really to start telling the story because that's really the whole point of my being here tonight. Namely, that this particular lodge cast iron pan was actually made sometime around the year 2002. So, in other words, this pan, well, no, actually, yeah, that's right. So in other words, this pan is just about 23 years old, maybe a little bit older. And there's the discording number 23 showing up once again. But yes, and I better start telling the story from the beginning, namely that in 2002, I was married. And yeah, I will not be saying too much about my marriage, only that because it lasted about 8 years or so. And that's actually a part of this story too, but I'm not going to go into any nasty details. I don't like saying bad things about people when they're not here, so I'm not going to. Suffice to say, in March of 2002, I was married, and we had a nice wedding and reception and everything like that. And so, of course, we got to receive some wedding presents. And among those wedding presents, what do you think one of them happened to be? Well, nonetheless, it happened to be a cast iron pan, namely this one. And I've learned since that giving a cast iron pan as a wedding present is an excellent idea, and I strongly recommend it for anyone. So this was in 2002, way back when, about 23 years ago. However, at that time, let me tell you what we did with that pan. Oh, and again, this pan is on the thumbnail video for this the thumbnail for this video, the thumbnail picture for this video. On the underside is the Bass Pro Shops logo. So we had a pretty good idea of where the person who gave this pan, where he got it from. Like I said, it does not have lodge on the helper handle. They started with the helper handles around 1998 or so I'm told. So this was only a few years after that. Boy, this is not taking long at all. Anyway, all I'll say before I go on to the next step, what did we do with this cast iron pan in 2002? Absolutely nothing. We stuck it in the back the back of a cabinet in the kitchen and completely forgot about it. And it sat there unused in the back of that cabinet, becoming rusty for 8 years. And with that, I think I'm about ready with these onions here, which means now we can let's move on to something else, like maybe some tomatoes. I am going to be doing actual tomato sauce as well, but I thought it would be nice to throw some tomatoes in as well. Oh, and here's the other thing. I'm putting tomatoes into a bare cast iron pan. Oh no, I'm ruining it. The pan is going to explode. How will I ever survive? But as you can see, not much is really happening. Although on the other hand, these are plum tomatoes too. As you know, plum tomatoes are pretty tough and pretty solid. So, but I wanted to, as I said, mix this all together here to put some flavor in. And once these are softened, I've got a couple of other things. Not too much more. Anyway, as I mentioned, this was in 2002. That pan just sat in my kitchen for 8 years because, as I've said many times before, that was at the period of my life where I would have told you that I could not cook to save my life. Our freezer was basically stocked with frozen Walmart burritos, frozen Walmart pot pies, and frozen Walmart $1 cheap pizzas. You know, those kind of things. Yeah, that was the kind of stuff that we survived on for 8 years or so. In that respect, we didn't do too badly. However, things changed. All right, boy, these tomatoes are actually starting to soften and come apart already. So we are not doing too badly here. Okay, so far so good. That means now that we've done that, it's time for the next step, which is I'm going to throw in baiting. Yeah, I think I will do some mushrooms. One nice thing about mushrooms is, like spinach, they shrink. So even though this pan looks pretty full, it's going to there's going to be a lot of room left over. So I'm not too worried about that. Anyway, these are just the basics. The base for a sauce. And as I said, this is really no more than your typical pasta sauce. which is why, as I said, you could just simply just throw in a can of pasta sauce if you wanted to, preparing this dish. Again, I'm just trying to be a little fancy because, well, tonight I'm having fun and relaxing and de-stressing and just doing what I can to have some fun. These are cremini mushrooms, for the record, which go pretty darn good with steak. All right, what do we have here? I can see all of the seasoning coming off. Yeah, can't you? I mean, boy, look at this. We're already down to bare metal. Oh, actually, let me do this. You notice how, by the way, this pan is, my spatula is just sliding across the surface of this modern-day Lodge cast iron pan. That's because when I did finally start using this pan, I gave it a lot of use. It took several years, but I've built up some really nice seasoning on this pan so that this is no longer a rough Lodge cast iron pan. I did not grind down the surface. I did not wear out or otherwise smooth out the surface. What I did, though, was as I said, I put a lot of seasoning on this. So now, as a result, it's a nice, smooth surface. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because, as I mentioned, in 2010, that was when my life changed. I do not get into personal details like that. There are some people who really live to spill out their drama all over the internet, and I've really not been one of those people. Suffice to say, and remember, this was 15 years ago, my marriage ended, and I really don't even need to say too much more about that. But what that meant was that we actually, because we were, splitting up, we pretty much we were taking things from our apartment and moving on and going off in our own separate directions. It's interesting. All I could say is some of the things that my ex-wife left behind. She left behind those vintage Pyrex bowls that I was using for several years, for one. But as I said, I'm not really going to get into the details of that. And at that time, however, well, I did indeed have a girlfriend. But as I said, that is a subject for another time. Suffice to say, I was working with my girlfriend, and we were actually cleaning out my apartment. There wasn't really too much stuff for me to take as well. And among other things, I was rummaging through the kitchen, trying to see if there was anything that I might need. And then, wouldn't you know it, from the back of a cabinet, I pulled out an old, rusty, orange-colored cast iron pan. Yeah, it had rusted to the point where it was still just about all surface rust, but it had that orange color you see in rusty cast iron. At which point, my girlfriend, who did know how to cook, she took one look at it and said, "Oh, that's cast iron. You want to save that." And I said, "What, this?" And she said, "Yeah." So I took it with me. All right. I trusted her enough to take her word for it. This was in September of 2010, that is. So that meant, basically my whole life was turning around, and I got a new apartment for myself. I actually wasn't living with my girlfriend. I was actually living by myself. So that meant, really, because I was by myself, this was where things really changed for me. Because, some people, when they go through traumatic experiences like that, some people start doing things like gambling, drinking, drug abuse, and so forth. Me, what happened to me? I caught the cooking bug. And to this day, I don't think I could really even explain why I suddenly found it interesting to start learning how to cook. But I did, and so that was really when things began to take off, because then along came December of 2010. And in fact, I was so much of a Facebook nerd that I even wrote it down on Facebook, on my personal Facebook page, and I can still look it up to this day. So that's how I know it was on December 15th of 2010. And I wrote to myself, yeah, I've been in my apartment for one month now, so I'm going to celebrate with steak. And what's more, I'm going to use this cast iron pan that I've had, and I'm going to use it for the first time. So, remember what I said about not knowing how to cook? I went to the local supermarket, which I'm about 99% sure was Price Chopper. Actually, these mushrooms are breaking down nicely, so I'm about ready for a couple of other things. One of which is some garlic, because of course you gotta have garlic, that's for sure. And I gotta be careful not to burn the garlic. So anyway, I went to Price Chopper and picked myself up a steak. And knowing the way I am, I probably picked up a cheap steak. We're probably talking like a sirloin, most likely. And so I went in and I went home that night and took out this cast iron pan. This cast iron pan was still, by the way, orange with rust. I did attempt to clean the inside of the pan so that I thought it would be safe to cook with. I'm pretty sure I just scrubbed it out with soap or something like that. But I cooked the steak that night, and I absolutely ruined that steak. I took that steak and I started poking and prodding at it with a fork and turning it over and just moving it around, doing everything possible to dry out that steak and turn it into a piece of leather. I am absolutely 100% certain that is what happened when I cooked a steak for the first time in that cast iron pan. However, something happened that I really was not expecting. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I was having a lot of fun cooking that steak. It was, just like I said tonight, it was stress relief. I was enjoying myself. I may not have had any idea what I was doing, but I enjoyed it and I had fun. And I ate that steak and I convinced myself that it was delicious because, like I said, I probably dried it out and turned it into leather. But I really had fun cooking in that cast iron pan. And then, like the geek I was, over the next few days, I started looking on the internet. I started looking on Google and other things about cast iron pans. And anybody who has started looking into cast iron pans on the internet knows there is a lot of history out there. Even 15 years ago, even 15 years ago, before the internet blew up cast iron. Okay, now that we've done all this, it's time now to actually get some tomato sauce into this pan. All of this is kind of like a base. And then after that, I'm throwing in my spices. And that's really all you need to do. So this really wasn't that hard. And in fact, this has taken longer than it would for you because I am talking and talking and talking while I'm doing this. If you were just doing this by yourself and not on a live video, you'd probably be doing this in half the time that I am. All right. So anyway, as I mentioned, I started doing my research, which for a geek, you know what that means? That means you end up getting hooked. And lo and behold, I started learning things about cast iron. I started learning how to take care of that cast iron pan. I believe the first time I really tried getting the rust off of that cast iron pan, this was on the advice of my mom. I think I made a slurry of something like salt and vegetable oil, and I scrubbed it at that pan, and I think I did an okay job getting rid of some or most of the surface rust. But then from there, what did I do? I started using that cast iron pan a lot. And I really did indeed enjoy myself. And then something else happened. I started acquiring more cast iron. Because as I mentioned, this was December 15th when I first cooked in that cast iron pan and really enjoyed it. And 10 days later was Christmas. My parents then gifted me a cast iron pan, which happened to be this like 11-inch wide, not by Lodge, I'm certain it was Asian made, an enameled cast iron grill pan, which I have long since gotten rid of because I found myself, an enameled grill pan was not something I thought would be very useful over time. And to be honest, I don't regret getting rid of it. Anyway, hello as well now to Corey Clark. Nice to see you here on this Monday evening. And hello, Ken C. 4104. You got away with the tomatoes, but not the sauce. The pan is ruined. I know. Isn't it awful? Can't you see how this pan is really just warping before our eyes? For the record, by the way, I have this pan on medium. I've heated it up for about 10 minutes on medium, and I have not turned the temperature up any higher than that. However, what I do need to do is to start throwing in some seasonings. So, all right, here comes the salt. Not too much. And here comes the pepper. My pepper grinder broke, or actually the handle did. I accidentally knocked it off the cabinet, off the tabletop here, and the handle broke on my pepper grinder, and I'm actually kind of upset about that. Then for here, not too much, but a little bit of red pepper flakes. That's probably plenty. All right. Salt, pepper, red pepper flakes. That goes in with the garlic that we did, as well as those mushrooms and onions. So we've got a nice thick sauce coming in here so far. And this sauce is good and hot. And to this, we'll just add in maybe a little bit more garlic powder, not much, because there's no such thing as too much garlic, especially in pasta sauce or pizza sauce. Throw in a little bit of basil. And finally, some oregano. And that should be plenty. Oh, yeah. One other thing. I have another confession to make. Only about a couple of weeks ago did I suddenly realize turmeric is pronounced turmeric. I don't know how, but for my entire life, or at least since I've been cooking, I actually read the word turmeric wrong, and I saw it as turmeric, and I spelled it turmeric with one R. I don't know how all this time, all these packages of turmeric I've been looking at all these years, I did not see the other R. It was somehow invisible to me. And yet somehow, a couple of weeks ago, I had a revelation and I realized it's turmeric, pronounced turmeric, Turmeric. And I do not know how I missed that. Yeah, we definitely have some sauce going on here, which means now that we've done all that, guess what? Here's the steak. Okay, so far it's been about 30 minutes, right? Well, as I said, if you were doing this yourself, it would probably take less than that. It would probably take like maybe 15 to 20 minutes at the most. And again, if you were to just simply get yourself a can of pasta sauce or pizza sauce and heat it up on the stove, you could probably be at this point in about 10 minutes. Sear the steak, heat up the sauce. I'm just doing it the hard way, because now that we've done that, it's time to turn down the heat to a simmer. I'm on low now. And get out A large glass lid, even with the Lodge logo on it. I acquired this earlier this year. And with that, it's time to start simmering or braising this steak until it's done. And that's it. That's how easy it is to make steak pizzaiola. All right. While I'm waiting here, yeah, I'm almost done with my story too. But I mean, I'm not quite done. Acidic ingredients are fine if you have some good seasoning, but I've had issues otherwise. Yes, exactly. I use my all-clads for tomato sauces. The stainless needs love anyway, too. You're exactly right, Lando Calrissian. This is kind of like a special occasion, which is why I wanted to do this in my very first cast iron pan. But you are correct. As I mentioned, I told you I've had this pan for this Lodge cast iron pan now. I've been using it, that is, for the past 15 years. There was at least once, maybe twice, when I did have to strip and reseason the pan, but the last time I'm pretty sure was several years ago. So I've got at least several years worth of seasoning on this pan. So one night should not be a problem. Lodge lids cost more than the pans. Well, I got this pan for free. You're exactly right. I think I did order this from Lodge's website, and I believe you're probably right. I think it cost maybe about $25 or so. So, but that's really just because I wanted to be fancy and get one from Lodge. So, I mean, I've no doubt whatsoever you could get a cheaper glass lid at a thrift store. You could get one for like $5, because the price of everything is going up these days. So, I mean, I wanted to be fancy with this, but you don't have to be. I mean, there is absolutely nothing wrong with being cheap and frugal. I mean, that's the whole point of this hobby. We go hunting for cast iron, especially so that we don't have to pay those ridiculous prices that they have at the antique malls. And besides, you saw the Bass Pro Shops logo on the bottom of this pan. These days at Bass Pro Shops, how much do you think a cast iron pan with the Bass Pro logo would cost these days? $30? And I'll bet if it was sold on eBay, they'd probably be selling it for $50 or so. But yeah, just wash them right away and not leave them dirty overnight. You're exactly right. Namely that once this is done cooking, I am going to clean this pan out right away. Cracker Barrel has them, Lodge glass lids. Well, that's good to know too. I have an old Wherever glass lid that fits my 10-inch Lodge. There you go. That's the way to do it, Lando Calrissian. I mean, yeah, definitely. Flea market finds, maybe cast-offs from pans from other pots that were broken. All of that is certainly possible. Yeah, Goon, I agree on red pepper flakes. Let me go up as well. That came from one skinny cow. Yeah, that was a pretty thin piece of steak, wasn't it? And no, I did not even pound it out. So that's probably one reason why I got that piece of steak for $9. It's definitely not the best one for really the best kind of steak, that's for sure. For the love of God, that poor pan. Yes, exactly. Back in the day when Granny only had 2 to 3 pans, they were all in heavy use. Seasoning was not an issue. There is that, exactly. I've always said turmeric. Oh, yeah, Lando Calrissian. Yeah, look at a package of turmeric and you'll see it is T-U-R. I have no idea how that letter was invisible for all these years, but it was. But anyway, I have square lids from Corningware that fit my large square pan. Well, that's all good, too. Always check the discount table at Cracker Barrel. I wonder if the acid in the sauce tenderizes the meat a bit. It absolutely does. That's one good reason as well. Yeah, let me say something else, too. As I mentioned already, this was like maybe a sirloin or a top sirloin or something and you mentioned that was a real thin piece of sirloin too. As far as a steak goes, it's not the best steak in the world. And if you're going to make a dish like steak pizzaiola, I highly recommend use a cheap cut of meat. Because you're doing just this. You're seasoning it in sauce which means you're implanting a lot of flavor into it. And this steak is almost certainly going to be past well done. So we are not going to have ourselves a medium rare piece of meat here. All things considered, including if you want to be budget conscious, because this is a great budget meal. I mean, what do we got? We got 8 pieces of steak that is basically simmering in pasta sauce. And I already said that part. You could just dump in a can of pasta sauce and go from there. All of which means yes, there are videos out there for making steak pizzaiola, because there are videos out there for everything. And in most of those videos, they say, I'm going to use a ribeye. I'm going to use this prime rib. I'm going to use this Wagyu that I had in the back of the fridge, or some silly thing like that. But you don't have to. I strongly recommend using cheap beef, especially for that reason. I mean, if I'm going to make myself a make myself a ribeye, I'm going to make a ribeye the traditional way of searing a steak in a cast iron pan, because I want to taste that ribeye. Ribeye is delicious. I mean, I'm not going to ruin it like that. On the other hand, here, like I said, I'm using a nice cheap cut of meat. And yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. If you've got yourself some cheap meat, if you've got like some top round or flank steak or something like that, so the stuff that, as I said, that you can actually get at a discount these days. This is one way to make it. Steak pizzaiola, which again is basically just beef braised in pasta sauce, in tomato sauce, in seasoned tomato sauce. That even means if you get some of that so-called stewing beef, the cut up pieces of brisket or whatever that you have there in your pan, that they have there in the meat department. Because beef is ridiculously expensive these days, so don't pass up on the cheap cuts. Just simply use your imagination, and that's not very hard at all. And you can and you'll end up with something like this instead of just having to serve. I mean, I love beef stew too, but what would your kids think if you serve them steak pizzaiola, especially since it has the word pizza in it? Because yeah, that's what we're doing. We're really searing this in pizza sauce. Or simmering it in pizza sauce. Flat iron is good too, yes. I believe Dubs had done it too. I like chuck eye. I love chuck eye. Mudbrooker has an original Wagner with the original square lid. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's got an amazing collection, doesn't he? So, but yeah, that's the other thing though with pasta sauce. I mean, yes, as I said, I am using this special occasion to make tomatoes in my cast iron because yes, you can every so often. I do not recommend doing it on a regular basis because it will indeed affect the seasoning. On the other hand, on my aluminum pots, it's like when I use tomato sauce on my aluminum pots, it does a great job cleaning up the inside and making it all shiny and everything. I know that's what they say, it reacts with the aluminum, but so far I haven't had a problem with that. Did you just freshly this pan out of your lye tank? See, I see. No, not this pan. This again is my Lodge redneck pan, which I've actually, the last time I seasoned this was at least several years ago. So I've built up a lot of seasoning on this. There were a few pans that I did freshen up in my lye tank this year, one of which was my number 10 Griswold, and the other one was good old Stumpy, my number 14 BS&R. I think, the other one I also reseasoned was the BS&R Sportsman Fryer, the Sportsman Oval Long Fish Fryer. All of those were reseasoned. I stripped them in the tank and then reseasoned it. Even so, maybe this weekend or so, I might give this pan an extra coating of seasoning or two anyway, just to be safe. But one thing I've never had issues with is boiling soups and stews in my cast iron Dutch ovens. Doesn't hurt the seasoning at all. Acidic ingredients is another story. And yeah, we're definitely getting into the season, no pun intended, for that. I mean, we're getting into chili season, time for chili, time for gumbo, all of those usual cold weather dishes you make. And why not? After all, we are in the season. Again, no pun intended. Time for Christmas preparations and other holiday preparations, all of which, of course, if you make it fun, then that's good. We know what meant. Don't worry. Matching square pants, flat iron is good. But anyway, that's my story there, and I think I'll stick to it. I'm thinking like by 9 o'clock or so, I'll probably check this. Like I said, I have the heat down turned just low, or maybe a tad bit above low. It's really no more than number 2 on this gas stove. Though maybe from the looks of it, I might want to turn it up to like maybe 3 or so that I can at least really simmer it. Yeah, actually, I'll turn it up to 4. That should be enough. Okay. Because, again, the whole point of this is, like you said before, is really to tenderize the meat. Because, yeah, I mean, sirloin can be chewy if you do it the wrong way. Not to mention things like flat iron or top round or the like. If you don't cook them the right way, they will indeed be chewy. So will chuck eye. Oh, yeah. These newer lodges are honestly great, if only for the helper handle. Wish my vintage pans had that. Yes, indeed. It's as though Lodge did learn some lessons over 100+ years of existence. You now have pimento fry some taters. Ooh, that doesn't sound too bad either. But what was I just saying? Yeah, no, that's what, then we get into the argument, of course, of vintage versus modern, because of the so-called rough surface on the Lodge cast iron pan. As I mentioned, this has several years of seasoning, and it has, in fact, filled in the surface of this Lodge pan, so it is, in fact, nice and smooth. Way different from a brand new Lodge cast iron pan. But it also means that the best thing you can do with a modern day Lodge pan is to just use it and keep using it. And you will enjoy it, and you will get yourself a nicely seasoned cast iron pan. Which is why I say again, no, I don't grind my Lodge cast iron pans. You can grind your Lodge cast iron pans if you want to. I just think it's a waste of effort. I mean, I don't see any use for it. Well, I mean, I do see a use, but I mean, I don't need it. Saw the Magoo Christmas Carol this past weekend. Oh yeah, the raspberry dressing. Well, thank you very much, Flash, for $14.99. Yeah, yeah, Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. I grew up with that one. I am a Gen Xer. I am literally a product of the summer of love. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. And that was in the days of course, when there are only like 3 major TV channels and a whole bunch of UHF channels. And during Christmas at that time, yeah, Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol was broadcast at least a dozen times, and all of these odd times. Usually like maybe about, I don't know, 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night or a Monday night or something like that on the UHF stations. It was not the type of thing that they would do a special on, like Charlie Brown Christmas. On the other hand, I personally think Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol is one of the top 3 animated Christmas specials. Number 1 might be Charlie Brown Christmas. Number 2 might be Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. And number 3 might be How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Those are all immortal, and I firmly believe Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol stands up strongly next to those other 2. It is one of the greatest animated Christmas specials of all time, and I highly recommend to everybody that they watch it at some point with their kids. Ken C104, I bought a couple of black locks. They are nice. Oh, yeah, they are. Yeah, the 10 inch is as light as my 10-inch Wagner. Yeah, I weighed my black lock, that is, and I can confirm that that black lock is probably about just about the same size as a vintage, really old and really light Griswold or Erie skillet. It is probably about 25% lighter than a modern day lodge. Of course, people still complain even about the black locks. It's too thin. And of course, it still has the lodge rough surface. We've already said enough about the lodge rough surface. I like my black lock because of its shape, and I think my black lock makes a great chef's skillet. I will say the pre-1960s three-lodge lodges had some beautiful swirl machinery. Yes, they do. The bumpy surface still holds seasoning better in my experience. Yeah, I mean, it does work. They designed the modern day rough surface especially so it holds seasoning better, and frankly, it does work in that way. I mean, you can, of course, get good seasoning with the old vintage pans, including the older lodges. It does take some more effort, and that's really why Lodge did that, so that it would be easy, so that you can take your pan and take off the wrapping when you get it home from Walmart and start cooking with it right away. But enough with the propaganda for Lodge. Yes. But yeah, I've got a couple of older lodges with those swirl marks too. People like those swirl marks probably because they look pretty. Honestly, because they look very artistic or aesthetically pleasing. And that's probably the big reason why they do enjoy it. I think I will flip this. So, oh yeah, yes, yeah. This thing is curling up and getting. You know how when a steak, look at this, look how it gets all curved and everything. It's got a big air bubble here. The steak is curved. I mean, as you can see, it's all curling up. So we'll just do it on this side now. I mean, if I was frying this steak and it started curling up like that, that would be a job for a cast iron press. Okay. Seasoning is to stop rust. If you really know how to cook in cast iron, you can use a rusty pan. Yes, you can. Muppet Christmas Carol. Yeah, Muppet Christmas Carol is fun too. Maybe I was just at the wrong age or something when Muppet Christmas Carol came out. You know, it's not the type of thing that absolutely touched my heart, but I know it has touched a lot of people's hearts, and I'm not going to argue with them over that. CBS stopped airing Frosty the Snowman. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. The bumpy surface is basically a design feature. Yes. Yeah, Frosty the Snowman. All right. You know, those animated Christmas specials, they must have made like about at least 24 of them during the 1970s. And then they started pumping them out by the dozens in the 1980s, and they got worse and worse as the years went on. And that actually included the Rankin Bass animated Christmas specials. You know, I mean, Rudolph is a classic, and Frosty is a classic. And you know, the reason why Rudolph is a classic is because it actually has some real suspense in it. I mean, as a kid, I actually did feel kind of scared when I watched the original Rudolph. You know, Rudolph with that storm of storms, that huge snow hurricane thing that struck the North Pole and was really so deadly that that Rudolph had to use his nose to shine his way. But there were moments of suspense in the original Rudolph, especially with Bumbles, the original abominable snowman. I mean, there was actually some suspense in that. And likewise, the first Frosty special. I mean, everybody remembers when Frosty melted at the end of the Frosty special, and I was lucky enough to watch one of my younger relatives at like the age of 6 or 8 or something when she watched Frosty the Snowman for the first time, and I saw the tears in her eyes when Frosty melted. And to be honest, it was a wonderful moment. I mean, because it was really, really sad. That might be for some kids, maybe the very first time they experience really something really sad like that in the movies or TV. Because, of course, as you know, a couple of minutes later, Santa comes in and magically uses Christmas, what do they call it? The first wind of Christmas or something like that to magically bring Frosty back to life and all that. But still, moments like that, the best Christmas specials have them. The worst Christmas specials did not. I mean, even though I was nostalgic for things like Frosty's Winter Wonderland, the sequel where he got his snow wife and was married by a snow parson, it's kind of sappy now, I'm afraid, when you look it over. When you look at it as an adult, I'm afraid. So movies got worse and worse until they made the movie Elf. Number 8, BSNR locally for $15. Congratulations. I'm fighting the urge. I don't have many compared with you guys, but still 4 10-inch pans should be enough. Must fight urge. Yep. Oh, yeah. Ken C. 4104. You've got it. You've got cast ironitis. You have to resist the urge. I mean, tell me about it. I've got 15 number 8 10-inch cast iron skillets now. I don't need 15 number 8 cast iron skillets. All I really need, quote unquote, is this one right here. The very first Lodge cast iron pan that I have. I don't need any more. And yet I love them. I love my Red Mountain BSNR number 8. I love my other modern day Lodge cast iron pans with patriotic logos and everything. So, and I do my best to try to get as much use out of all of them as well. Lando Calrissian. I didn't get around to watching It's a Wonderful Life until a few years ago. Honestly, it's great. Oh, yes, it is. Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life is one of those rare movies that really is as good as its legend says. It honestly is heart-touching. I mean, they've made so many sappy, treacly, and ridiculous and nauseating Christmas movies over the years that, I mean, if you've never seen It's a Wonderful Life, you might expect it to be like that. But It's a Wonderful Life somehow manages to do it. It is so, what's the word? Heart-touching. It's one of those rare movies that is a little dash of Christmas magic, and it's definitely worth it. I need 2 10-inch skillets for when I make double layer cakes. There's an excuse for you. Or then again, you know that video that I made of cast iron chicken, where you press your chicken between two cast iron skillets. There's another excuse for you, because there are excuses. Or here's an excuse: Christmas is coming. You know, somebody you know might need that cast iron pan. Yeah. Or might like that cast iron pan for Christmas. So there are any number of excuses, and really, YouTube channels like this are the worst place to come if you are resisting temptation. I'm definitely not going to argue with that. All right, 8:53. Let's turn this over one more time. Yeah, this steak's come apart, but that's all right. And it is not burned on the bottom either. Everything is still just fine. However, I would almost certainly say that this is just about done at this point. All right. And this is not Cast Iron Wednesday. I'm not going to keep everybody here for an hour and a half, I promise. But thank you very much to everybody who has been kind enough to show up here tonight. What do you think is the most valuable skillet you have? Oh, valuable to me? I could not answer that. That's like asking, what's your favorite cast iron pan? I can't answer that because there are different situations that call for different things. Like, for instance, there's Stumpy, my number 14. or my Red Mountain, as I mentioned, or this or that. As far as value is concerned, the way the antique vendors would look at it, maybe my Griswold number 10, my large logo Griswold number 10 with a number 10 lid on it. Oh yeah, I did a video earlier this year. You might want to check that one out. The video is entitled, I paid over $100 each for these cast iron pans. Was it worth it? That was the one, that's the video where I took a look at the cast iron pans in my kitchen that I shelled out a lot of money for. And that might be a good place to look if you want to wonder what is the most valuable pans in my collection. All I'll say about that video is most of those pans, I do feel it was worth it. A couple, I'm not so sure. But just watch that video because it's not too long, and maybe that'll give you an answer for that. BS&R are great for potatoes and onions. I shelled out the bucks and got my sister a licorice pumpkin I can't pronounce that. Coquette for Christmas this year. Well, congratulations again, Lando. That's very, very generous of you. That's like asking, what is your favorite dog or kid? And yes, as I said, in the right order, but the cast iron is first. Okay. Yeah, I think we're about done. You see the way this thing is steaming up? I mean, I can see really that the liquid is really coming off at this point. Because, there we are. All right, I had better take a money shot of this. Move the microphone over here. I had better take a money shot of this. So let's move this over this way. And then this way. And I think I'll do a very quick video as well. All right, so here we go. Celebrating my 15th anniversary of cooking in cast iron. And if you can think of something more nerdy than that, then please let me know. But yes, indeed, 15 years ago this night, I used this very cast iron pan, a large 10-inch skillet, to cook a steak. And so we are celebrating by cooking another steak, although we're doing it a little bit differently. We are making steak pizzaiola, which is essentially steak simmered in pasta sauce or pizza sauce. And if you've never tried steak pizzaiola, definitely give it a try. There's a short video too. Okay. Oh yeah, all Bostons and all gifts, yeah. If one of your dogs is a beagle, it's the other one. Yeah. Just in the door before it closes. Okay, 15 years. Yeah, I know. The time sure has flown. And I certainly have learned a lot. I'm really happy to have a skill that will definitely serve me for the rest of my life. Not to mention having a lot of fun here. And these YouTube videos are a large part of the fun, too. All right. But, yeah, like I said, I definitely need to clean this thing up pretty quickly. So let's do what we can and plate this. All right. Here we are. Yeah, I'm using the same plate. I'm not going to get cooties. First, here's the steak. And now, let me grab my spoon. This is definitely like a smothered steak here. Smothered in sauce. Because the sauce is, oh man, does this ever smell good. After all, this is a mushroom and onion sauce along with some garlic as well. So yeah, a really, really thick sauce. But then again, I like a thick sauce. And yeah, this is definitely going to be filling as well. But there we are. Steak Pizzaiola. Nice way to celebrate my 15th cast iron anniversary. And thank you to everybody who's been kind enough to come along and watch this. And obviously, yeah, I would suggest, again, if you haven't tried this recipe, give it a try. Like I said, I did it the hard way. You can do it the hard way too. Put together your own pasta sauce or pizza sauce, and then you just sear your steak and simmer it in it. Or you can do it the easy way and just get a jar of pasta sauce or pizza sauce, heat it up in the pan. Well, sear your steak first, then heat it up in the pan, and just simmer the steak in it and see what you think. I think you'll love it. I know I certainly do. But thank you so much. Don't forget to turn the burner off. I already did turn off the burner, yes. So all I'll need to do now is clean this pan up once it cools off a little bit. Oh, yeah, I'd eat that. Yeah, yes, William Hurt, I'd eat that. If you don't, you'll end up with another $2,500 gas bill. Oh, yeah, tell me about that. I'll never forget that as well. But thank you very much as well to everybody. And because, yeah, this has been a nice, fun hour. I'm really glad to have been here on YouTube Live with all of you folks. Thank you very much for, as I said, helping me celebrate a personal anniversary. And, you know, maybe you can do that too. I mean, why not? Any excuse to use cast iron is a good one. But thank you very much to everybody. Boy, look at the angle of this. It's just the odd way because of the camera here. But anyway, thank you so much to everybody who's been kind enough to show up here tonight. And Clico, yeah, and enjoyed the spontaneous. Well, thank you so much. And Strong's Adventures, and Rick Stumbow, Corey Clark, William Hurt, John Surf. Hello, John Surf. Oh, yeah, the stories I like. I find myself, I mean, I didn't even know I really have gotten so much into telling these stories whenever I'm on these live videos. But I like the stories. They're fun to tell, and I hope you folks find them entertaining. But anyway, I've got a steak to eat, and I have a pan to clean up. So thank you very much for everybody, and thank you for your time tonight. Have yourself a good evening. And yeah, I hope so, Rocket Caver. That's another story, which I'll tell eventually. But right now, though, as I said, everybody just relax, have fun cooking, keep safe, and keep warm. And have yourself a good evening.